Let's talk. Hello, welcome to Let's Talk. I'm Salley Gibney. It's that time of the year again when we're starting to think about our gardens. But the weather has been so crazy, we don't know what to do. But today, as my guest, I have wonderful friend Darren Godette from Mettowee Mill Garden Center. And he's here to share with us what we can do, how to get started. Darren, thank you for being here.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I grew up in West Paulet, Vermont.
Really?
Yes, yep. My husband and daughter and I, we live in Fort Anne, New York now. I commute every day over to Dorset.
How long does that take you?
50 minutes with no traffic. Depends on how many school buses I'm behind.
Yeah, that is a big one.
Yep. And I've been at Mettowee Mill Garden Center for, this is my 17th season now.
Wow.
So we've been a long time.
Yeah. Well, you are kind of, when we have a question, we know Darren's there, we'll find him.
Yes, yep.
And I do track you down.
Yes. Yep.
So today we want to talk a little bit about our gardens. People are sort of wondering, when do they get started? How do they get started? The weather's been crazy. What do we do, Darren?
Yes, the weather is always a challenge with us. We're always working around Mother Nature. Unfortunately, it's the one variable that we have no control over in our industry. We're a little late putting our pansies out this year, but they're going out this year, or today actually, later today, and
pansies are pretty strong, are they?
Yes, you have a few crops that can go out early: pansies, snapdragons, stock, violas. Alyssum is very cold tolerant. In addition to all your cool season vegetables that we would rotate out now as well. But we always we start everything obviously indoors with higher temperatures and get it well rooted and right to that point where it's flowering, and then we have a series of cold frames where we rotate everything outdoors and we get it acclimated, and we can peel the plastic back every day, every morning and every night.
Okay, so you cover them every night?
Yep, unless it's, if it's going to be 34 or above, we like them to get hardened off is the term, and we will leave them uncovered or give them moderate cover because you want them to get acclimated to the weather, because once they're out on our benches,
there's not much you can do.
There's not much you can do for them. You're throwing them to the wolves, so to speak. But, everything that we start inside this time of year always gets acclimated, and then it goes out for sale, because we obviously want to offer the best quality product for the customer, and we want them to be successful with it.
Exactly.
Because an unsuccessful customer is an unhappy customer.
I know, and you hate to see your plants not do well. We'll talk more about that later. So if we put pansies in our flower boxes now, we should, at night though, if it's going to be cold, we should cover them. Pansies are the rare exception. I mean, if it does get really cold, their flowers may get zapped by the frost. The plants are almost always fine, and they've got some buds down there that are still tight. You just pinch off the dead flowers, and a new round is right behind them a couple of days later. It's not a huge issue with pansies and violas. They're right along the same family. So. And I think all of us are looking for a little bit of color. You know, you're thinking it's that time, we need it.
Oh yes, yep. People are chomping at the bit to get something in the ground.
Exactly. So how do we go about putting things in the ground? How do you start preparing your garden, and what do you recommend? Well,
when it comes to preparing your gardens and your perennial gardens, you obviously need to go around and clean up any debris that may have fallen during the winter.
Is it time to do that?
Yep. Things are starting to emerge now, so you really want to get that debris out of there before your daylilies grow through it, and it's impossible to pull it out without tearing the plant apart. And
you kind of worry about them. They're all right. I mean, you know, because if it snows or whatever.
They are fine. I mean, we had about 3 or 4 inches of snow just less than 10 days ago, and everything was fine. Some things, some of the daylilies got a little nip, but everything's fine.
Little daffodils and tulips are okay.
Yes, yep. We've had people calling for 2 months saying their daffodils were coming up. Should they throw more mulch on them? What should they do? Unfortunately, there's not much you can do.
You just kind of go with it.
You have to go with it and take what Mother Nature dishes out, unfortunately. But yeah, you want to, after you get your debris cleaned up, I always do a spring feeding. You go through and use a product like the Plant Tone. This is just a good across the board. It's actually the first one that Espoma came out with, and it was designed to feed everything.
So you can just start putting that down.
Yep, you want to
where
top dress. If you're a heavy mulcher, you need to pull that mulch back, unfortunately, away from the plants. Then put the plant tone down, scratch it in a little bit, and then replace
and then
the
put
mulch.
the mulch back.
The problem, some people will, to save time, spread their fertilizer on top of the mulch. The mulch
Doesn't work.
it zaps a lot of the nutrients, and the nutrients never get to the plant. So you really need to pull that mulch back. I don't mind getting out and pulling weeds, etc., and so I don't mulch. So it's a little easier for me. All I have to do is clean the debris up. And
Yeah. So you're not a mulcher.
I am not. The problems I find with mulching, it does look nice, and it certainly suppresses the weeds.
Oh, I was going to ask you.
However, if you like things reseeding and seeing things, your columbine and your foxglove popping up in different areas every year, the mulch is going to really hinder the reseeding process.
Oh, really?
They're not going to reseed in 3 or 4 inches of mulch, unfortunately, unless it's really broken down. So I choose not to mulch. I will go out and get a hoe or something and go ahead and just hand till the soil a little bit, and that really helps. And I spread seeds every year too. The columbines and the lupins and things that I'd like just popping up. But I prefer to have Mother Nature do it, and it's fun in the spring to go out and see where Mother Nature has placed all your plants for you.
Yeah, well, that's something that I never thought of, but that's true.
That's the only problem. One of the drawbacks of mulch is that it really hinders on the reseeding, the natural reseeding of your plants. You can certainly go out and pull the mulch back and throw some seeds around, but if you have a heavy layer, they're probably not going to germinate for you. So.
Oh, that's interesting. I never realized that. So you just have to get out there and get everything kind of scraped.
Yep, cleaned up. I always scuff the soil up. If you have a small tiller, like I have a little mantis tiller that's perfect. It fits in between all the plants. You can just go around and till up, do a light tilling, and that gets all the weed seeds and tills them under basically and helps cut down your amount of weeding later on. You also need to turn to disease prevention this time of year. Serenade's a great product. I can't say enough good things about it. It is OMRI listed. You can use it on everything, your perennials, your vegetables, your herbs.
Indoor plants?
Indoor plants, yep. Absolutely. It does have a little bit of an odor. It is very natural. So you want to take them outside and spray them down and let them dry.
So now you're starting the garden, and you have some little things there. You would use this? You would go out and spray whatever's there?
When you start to have 4 to 6 inches of the new growth for the season, especially things like irises that are prone to bacterial diseases, definitely your monardas and your paniculata phlox that are...
The phlox, what do you do with the phlox? They get the disease or it comes
This will prevent them. You need to prevent the powdery mildew that the phlox and the monardas almost always get. You usually don't see it until the humidity starts rising late June thereabouts, and then it's like all of a sudden...
Is it because they're too close together? I mean, if you spread them out a little bit, does that matter, or does it come anyway?
Poor air circulation, if you have an overcrowded garden, it absolutely is going to contribute to...
But it can come anyway.
It can come anyway. I mean, my plants all have plenty of space between them. I still get a little bit of powdery mildew every year. But it is poor air circulation, again, when the humidity starts to raise and you don't have the wind circulating, and it's just oppressive for you and the plants. And unfortunately, also if you go out and you're the type that wants to water in the evening to save water.
Is that not a good idea?
It's not a terribly good idea. Anytime you're wetting the leaves of a plant, you're basically creating a little landing pad for spores. It's like glue, and anything that's floating around in the air. A dry leaf, they tend to blow right over. They may not be as apt to settle on a dry leaf, but if you're going out in the evening and you're watering, after work, etc., that creates a little landing pad for every fungal pathogen that may be in the area.
Wow. Is it better to water in the morning?
Better to water in the morning, and if you can do soaker hoses or avoid the leaves, try to concentrate on the base of the plant. No overhead watering.
Wow. Now that's something I always thought that if you watered when the sun was bright, it would burn the leaves. That's not true?
Early morning is best. Midday watering when the sun's at its highest and fullest and strongest, not the best case scenario for plants. It does tend to, and most of it's just going to evaporate. You're not getting, the plants aren't getting the maximum benefit out of it.
Oh, that's something I've learned already. Now, all right, so we're here, we're preparing our soil. And now what?
So you can do the spring feeding. Also, if you're a composter, it's a good time to get some compost in, work it into the soil. Vegetable gardens are, you're starting with basically a clean slate every year, so it's easy to amend. Your perennial gardens are a little different story. Your plants are always there, hopefully. So you really have to work around them. Work in some compost every season. You replace the nutrients with the plant tone is a good broad spectrum.
Now you said it's very broad spectrum. You can use it with any. Can you use that with holly and things like that as well, or use the?
Espoma fortunately has branched out, and they have something for everything now. They have a holly tone, which is for
So you would
acid-loving
recommend
plants.
that.
But can you use this for acid-loving plants? Absolutely.
And it would work?
And it would work. It's still going to feed them, but it would be better to go with something
specifically for them.
Right.
Yeah, that's good to
that's
know.
tailored for them, and the rhododendrons and the hollies.
So this is the time to feed them.
Yes. Yep.
Right
I feed in the spring, and then I will go through and I'll also do a fall feed.
I think we'll do another show in the fall so you can tell us what to do
Yeah,
then.
yeah. Putting your gardens to bed is another whole topic.
Yeah.
But yep, going through, you also, if you can get some moo or some composted manure, that's a good way to replace the nitrogen, because your plants are using a lot of nitrogen throughout the growing season. And sometimes if I have time, I'll go through mid-season,
I was going to
late
ask
July,
that.
and just do a light top dress of plant tone just to help things finish getting through the season. At that point, your echinaceas and all your late summer bloomers, your monkshood and stuff are budding up, and they need that extra.
So it's really only then twice during the
you
summer.
really
You
only
don't
need-
have to feed like every month or every week.
Yeah,
or
if you're not going to do a time release like the plant tone, you can.
Oh,
do
this is a time release.
Yep.
Oh,
All
great.
the tone products are time release, and they release the nutrients as the plant needs them. But you can
that takes away a lot of the
right.
the questions. That's great.
You don't have to. I mean, you absolutely can go out and liquid feed them. It's if you're an avid gardener and you have the time to be out there every weekend feeding, go ahead. You can use something like the fish emulsion, the Neptune's Harvest fish emulsion.
But this is better because this
It's better, and it's just
easier.
it's tailored. It's basically tailored to all the plant's needs. So you're not applying just one nutrient or the other. It's a great all-around product.
It's a great way to go. So then now the gardens are starting, things are coming up, but you want to fill in. How do you figure out what goes where? And I get so confused.
Yeah, you really need to pay attention to the tags and the height and the spread of your plants, and how big is this plant going to get? Look around your local garden center and their display gardens. We have tons of our favorite plants all over in our gardens, and you can often see what a plant looks like when it's 3, 5, 10 years old. We've got plants that we've had there for 25, 30 years.
Right.
And you can really see what they look like. You can go through and do some dividing and move some of those around. That's a whole other topic, really, because there are certain plants that want to be divided late summer, et cetera.
Yeah, so that's something else you have to think
yeah,
about.
you really just have to pay attention to the tags and look at what the plant is ultimately going to look like and try to visualize it in your garden. And obviously taller and wider spreading.
And shade or sun or all that
Shade
sort
or
of thing.
sun.
Has a lot to do with
My
it.
gardens are next to impossible because it's like a tree hangs over this corner of the garden and a tree hangs over that corner of the garden. You really have to work around your current existing landscape. But yeah, you just have to really read the tags and look
also ask questions.
always ask questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I know with you at Mettowee Mill Garden Center, you are always incredibly helpful, and you also give classes there.
Yep.
And they're open to the public, and you can just come and hear, what's going on, what you can
we
do.
do. We try to do at least 2 lectures or sometimes hands-on workshops. A lot of them are free. You just need to sign so we know how many people to expect. Just sign up. And we do.
It's smart for people to keep their eye, because in the community we have a lot of different places that are giving wonderful ideas and thoughts, and I know personally that yours are absolutely great. So
yeah. There's a lot
really
of things. I've been an avid gardener since I was knee high.
Really?
Both my parents were gardeners, and I was fortunate enough, that my father built me a small greenhouse in the back, so I could always, after school, I would be out there playing in that and transplanting and getting.
So this is something you've always wanted to do.
Yep.
You really have a really good sense of the plants.
Yeah, plants and animals have always been my passion.
Yeah, that's so neat. That's great. Now, tell us what we have here.
Well, today I brought, this is one of our new annuals this year. This is a Thunbergia. It's a vining plant, and it's called Arizona Sun.
Let me hold it so hopefully our audience can see it. And tell me now, this will grow.
Yeah, they typically will vine up to about 8 feet.
Wow.
And if you pinch them, you can pinch them back once in a while at a node, and that'll make them fill out more. This one's in a hanging basket.
Now, do they like sun or shade?
They prefer full sun.
Full sun.
They'll tolerate partial, but they really.
I'm going to have to get one of those.
They're really
I have a
neat.
perfect spot for it.
People have been walking through the greenhouses and oohing and ahhing over it already. We've had the yellow and the orange, and this is kind of a happy medium between the two that we've had for years. But they're just a fantastic.
They don't go
plant.
outside yet.
Not yet. Nope. This is one of your more tender annuals. The growing season officially starts, you figure Memorial Day weekend, hopefully all danger of frost are over. That's when you can get your more sensitive annuals.
That's the time for you to really get out there.
That's the big push. That's when you can plant your window boxes and get all your annuals out and get your sensitive vegetables out, and
do all that
that's
good
when
thing.
it starts.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know, but we still have a little ways before we get there.
Yes.
Now, what is this?
This collection here is a group of houseplants, some of my favorite ones, but they're also very easy to take care of.
Right.
Low maintenance in general. This one here, this particular one is called a Ming Aurelia. It does flower. The flowers are pretty insignificant. It's just, I love them because it's just got a very oriental look to it, and it's just very calming.
They are very calming, really.
It really is. I mean, it doesn't flower. It doesn't have anything really showy, but the foliage is just so intricate.
And it's watering once a week, or?
Once a week if needed. Very, very, very low water on this.
Good.
Some
What
of
about sunshine?
They do. That's another great thing about them is they do very well in low light situations.
Oh, nice.
So if you've got an area that you really want to plant, but it's 10 feet away from your nearest window, it might be in the center of the house.
This would be the great one.
They tend to do very well in those situations.
And what is this?
That's another one of my favorites. That's a clivia plant. It's actually in the amaryllis family, but this one never goes dormant like you would allow an amaryllis, but you do kind of have to give it that similar treatment where I leave mine out with my amaryllis in the fall. You want them to get those cool temperatures, not frosted though, but definitely let them get those 38 to 40 degree temperatures. I just let it sit on the back porch. And that helps trigger them into their blooming cycle. So, another couple of months later, this one's a little late blooming this year.
Does it bloom continuously then?
It flowers once a year, but it's a long-lived flower. And you're going to get 4 to 6 weeks usually out of one flower stalk. And they will send up new ones.
Oh, nice.
And they love to be pot bound. And a clivia is ready to be pot bound or repotted when it bursts its pot. So you want it bulging.
You know when.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Now this beautiful plant here, which we're going to talk about,
This is a Mettowee.
Look at this gorgeous, gorgeous flower. I hope our audience can see that.
Yes, yeah. These actually, the actual flowers are these little clusters you see, and these will pop open at some point as well. But this came onto the market about 2 years ago. It became readily available, and they finally figured propagating them has been the issue, and they haven't been able to mass produce them. It used to be something that only collectors had, and they finally figured out how to propagate them and start producing them so that all the home gardeners can have them.
Oh, yes.
You have to treat them kind of like you do your Phalaenopsis orchids.
Well, I have to tell you now, I had purchased one of these, and I absolutely loved it. Now, the bloom was smaller, and it was darker, a darker color. However, I've lost both the blooms, and then I had this little
break in the
little
leaf.
break, and I thought that maybe something was eating it.
Yep.
And then I brought it to you, and you said to me,
yeah, this plant actually, I mean, the break in the leaf was just, looks like it got bumped. It's right perfectly at the edge of the pot, so it's probably just got bumped, and it's a scar. The plant's trying to heal itself now.
So do you just leave the scar alone?
I would just leave it alone because it's very, these plants regenerating leaves is not something that happens in a week or two. It takes them a very long time. I would leave it until the plant gets more mature, gets a couple more tiers. They produce these tiers of leaves.
Okay.
And then you could remove the two basal leaves if you wanted to.
Now, as far as the blooms.
Yep, at one point it probably got a little too dry. They do like it very dry, but
Not too dry.
I can see there should be some new growth coming, like there is here. So it probably got a little too dry. It will send out some new growth. I mean, the growth that it has is beautiful. It's not yellowing or browning. It looks fine.
So it's just a matter of watering it once a week, you said, or?
Once a week is sufficient for them. A pot that size, 3/4 to a cup of water should be sufficient.
I mean, it looks pretty happy otherwise, doesn't it?
And,
I mean,
yeah, and
I feel so guilty.
initially for the first 2 or 3 years, they make a fantastic hanging plant. I mean,
Yeah.
they look really neat in a hanging basket with all these pendulous blooms, and they bloom for a good 5 months at a time.
Which
so,
is wonderful.
I mean,
If
how
they
many
don't
other
get
houseplants can you
enough,
get that kind
or
of
if
color
something
out of?
doesn't happen to them. We have some. I wonder if you could give us some hints about houseplants.
Yeah, one of the common questions I get at a lot of the lectures are a lot of people steer away from houseplants because they do travel a lot. And they may not have a neighbor that's willing or reliable to come in and water their houseplants for them on a regular basis. Couple options, we do have what's called a plant nanny, which is a ceramic plant stake basically that you tip a soda bottle full of water upside down, and it will gradually soak into the soil and the plant will take water as it needs it. Another really cheap and expensive way is to take a common 1-gallon milk jug. You can tear up an old sheet into two
or undershirt. I took my
absolutely an old T-shirt, anything cloth. If you're going to be away a longer period of time, you may want to use something more absorbent, like an old bath towel that's going to hold more water. But you would cut it into basically 1-inch strips, 2 to 3 feet long thereabouts. You put one end in the jug of water. You take the other end and you would poke it into the soil, 2 to 3 inches, as deep as you can get it down, so that it's really wicking in. And what it is it creates a wicking system, and the plants can wick whatever water they need out of that jug. It is best to put them in the bathtub or a large sink or something.
And that's exactly what I did, because we went away, and I had heard you speak at one of your lectures at Mettowee, and I tried it, and it really worked.
Yes, yep,
I mean,
it does work.
was-
It's not a long-term substitute for a good watering, but it definitely will get your plants through 2 or 3 weeks if you're going to be traveling or going to be out of the house.
And taking your plants, say putting them in the tub, if some of them are plants that like sunlight, it won't hurt them for that period of time, will it?
Yeah, I mean, some people, I'm fortunate enough to have a skylight in my bathroom, so it works very well for me. But it's, you may just want to leave the bathroom light on so that they're getting at least some kind of supplemental light if you have no windows nearby. Or lay down a tarp, piece of plastic, a paint drop cloth or something in front of a bay of windows, and group everything there, put the jugs in the middle, and just group everything in a circle around them with the wicks.
That's a great idea.
That way, in case anything
They're
drips.
getting light, and
They're getting light, and you
they're
don't have to worry
getting
about
their
anything
water.
dripping or if a jug springs a leak or something.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, I have an aloe plant, a couple of them, and they're wonderful, they're very healthy, but a couple of the ends are getting very dry.
Okay. The tips of the
tips.
leaves?
Yeah, the very tips.
Okay, and they're the bottom leaves? Or is it on the center and the newer growth?
No, it's the older growth.
Okay. One thing you gotta remember, we get a lot of questions, what's happening with this leaf? Plants, it's natural for a plant to, as it grows and matures, to want to drop its lower leaves. Some do it naturally in the fall. Ficus and things of that nature, it's a natural reaction for them as the days get shorter to drop their leaves, and as they mature. My Mingorelia, for instance, at home is almost 4 feet tall.
Wow.
But as it grows, it does drop more and more of these lower
The
leaves.
lower ones.
And it's partly due just because the upper canopy is getting heavier. It's shading the lower canopy. It's not just getting as much light. And it's a natural reaction to the plant. A plant's natural reaction is I gotta get older and I gotta produce seeds because winter's coming and I'm going to die. That's their natural reaction. So they're just trying to put on the growth, that upper canopy, and get mature.
Now, I don't snip off that little dry. Say it's like at about an inch and a half.
It's probably going to continue down the leaf, and you're going to lose that lower leaf. It's a natural reaction of the plant.
I was thinking if I
clipped
it, but with aloes, if you clip it, then it kind of
I
drips. Just
Yeah.
leave it alone?
They are succulents, and
Yeah.
they have that aloe juice in them. Basically, it's very sticky, very soothing though for burns.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful.
But yeah, in that case, I would let them continue
Just
drying
let it
down.
do its thing.
Yep, and then
Because the
remove
rest of it is very healthy. It's a very healthy
Yep,
plant.
long as it's when you see any browning or soft, mushy spots on the new growth, that's an indication maybe you're overwatering, you're underwatering. Maybe
So it's the new growth really that you focus on rather than the
that's what you
undergrowth
look at when you're looking for issues with your plant.
when you're trying to diagnose.
Right. Lower growth, sometimes, I mean, in the perennial garden, for instance, lower growth, a lot of disease starts there because you have soil splashing up constantly in the lower growth.
And do you just cut it away then?
Yep, just remove it. But if you're going through with a Serenade, like I say, every couple of weeks and spraying down, Serenade, unfortunately, it's not a curative. It is a preventative, so you need to get out.
So you really start with that early on.
Yep, you need to be out there within the next couple of weeks when things are getting a good 6 inches of new growth on them and spraying them down.
And that's it. I wanted to ask you about the phlox. If you spray the phlox early on,
Yep.
does that last for the whole season, or do you have to keep spraying?
Every couple of weeks, it's a good idea to go out and reapply it. It is a preventative, but if you have a heavy rainstorm, it's going to wash off. It's the plant's constantly growing, so it's not going to be just it's not systemic. It's not going to be transferred
I
to the
see.
new growth.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
every couple of weeks,
So you
the
have to go
plant's
out
going to be
there.
putting on more growth. You need to get out there and you need to protect that new growth.
The lower growth, or the whole plant?
I spray the whole thing down long as I'm out there. If I'm going to put the effort in to go out and spray everything,
Might as well
I'm
spray it
going to do the. We have it it comes in a concentrate too. So if you have a 2.5 gallon sprayer or whatever,
Just put it in that.
mix up a large batch. But like I said, you can use it on everything.
That's great.
I trialed it on my basil plants last year
Really?
because fusarium and downy mildew are huge issues with basil.
And you can eat it?
Yeah, it is OMRI listed.
Oh, wow.
Remember, anything organic, organic or not, you still need to wash your fruits and vegetables and your herbs to remove whatever is on there in addition to that. But
Also, we're running out of time. I wanted to ask you about feeding your houseplants.
yes, feeding your houseplants, you don't need to worry about it during the winter months. So between say March and August, September, thereabouts, when you're getting ready to bring whatever in that you've had outside. Those are the okay months to feed. Winter months, a lot of them aren't actively growing. It's not a natural growing season for most of these plants. We're taking them in and we're overwintering basically, but they're not putting on a ton of new growth until the days start getting longer.
So that's for all houseplants. You don't feed them during the winter months.
Right. Another key point: never feed your houseplants or anything for that matter on cloudy days.
Really? Now, why
Yes.
is that?
The problem with that is also on cloudy days, plants are not actively growing again. They need the sun, for photosynthesis to take place, and if there's no sun, it's not taking place.
And then it just sort of sits there.
It just kind of sits there, and the nitrogen can cause all kinds of root problems and root rot. You just don't want to deal with it.
Oh my goodness!
You need to do it on a sunny day, and
usually,
ideally before
cloudy day-
lunchtime.
Really?
Because you need to give them adequate time throughout the day to take up as much of that nitrogen as possible.
And do you water them before, during, or after? I know I sound like such a...
Well, if you're feeding your houseplants, it's probably a liquid feed, so you're feeding
watering
and
them,
watering at
yeah.
the same time. And then, like I said, just try to do it before noon so that they have adequate amount of time to take all that nitrogen up, and it's not sitting in the soil and causing problems with their roots.
Oh, that's really interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah, it's one of the.
Darren, you have all these wonderful... It's absolutely great.
Yeah, it causes a whole host of headaches for you if you're feeding on a cloudy day or
I never knew that.
you have a rainy stretch.
That's worth the whole show.
Yes.
This has been absolutely wonderful, and I'm hoping that you'll come back again.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you for having me.
if people have questions for you, can they email you at Mettowee or stop by?
Yep.
Or
I get emails all the time. It's Darren, Darren, at mmnvt.com.
and we'll put that on the screen, and that's wonderful if you're
Yep.
open to people asking you questions, and because I can tell you you are absolutely wonderful. You've helped me with so many different things, and it's been just such a joy
Thank you.
having you here. Thank you, and we'll do this again
Absolutely.
at the end of the summer. Thank you, and for all of you out there, I hope you learned as much today as I did, and I want to thank you for joining us, as I thank Darren for being here, and until next time, let's talk.